All right, welcome to Two Sons Podcast. Happy Tuesday, everybody. Hope all of you guys are having a great week. It's been a little over a month since we've done an episode, but it's been busy.
We're slacking.
Dude, there's just been a lot going on. Your wife has gone back to work.
Yep.
I just went through a whole thing with the volume. I'm re-upped with them for a few more years. We went on a ski trip. By the way, Breckenridge.
Incredible.
Another 11 inches last night. They've had 40 inches this week. 40
Whereas
inches
we're
of snow.
still just getting absolutely zero moisture.
Yeah, exactly. Down here in Arizona, we're not getting anything. But yeah, it's been busy, but we're excited to be back. We have a very busy stretch coming up because in April we have Andor, which we'll be covering, and then
Very tightly.
Yes,
very
yes.
closely.
Yes, very closely. We'll cover every single episode, and then The Last of Us is coming back in April for season 2. Luke missed season 1, but he just gave me a commitment that he's going to watch season 1
In writing, in
and
blood.
the blood pact we just executed. Luke has agreed to watch the season 1 of Last of Us, so we'll be hitting Last of Us and Andor in April. So we'll have 2 episodes a week during that stretch of time. And the first in a long year of lots of content coming out. We got Game of Thrones later this fall. But today what we're going to be talking about is the news that Ryan Gosling is going to be potentially joining the Star Wars universe in a movie. I want to just kind of talk that through, what it means and like what we would like to see him be in. And then after that, finally, at long last, I have started digging into the Labyrinth of Evil book.
There's a lot of good stuff in there.
Yep, and we're both about a third of the way through the book. For those of you guys who are reading along with us, so we're going to be breaking that down, just kind of our initial impressions. A lot of James Luceno in the coming months because we've got, when we finish Labyrinth of Evil, there are audiobooks for the Revenge of the Sith novelization, which I'm really excited for.
Right.
And the Dark Lord, The Rise of Darth Vader, which I think is like the book that I've been dying to read for a long time, but I refuse to allow myself to read until I read these first 2 books. Because I just want to see all of the conversations and stuff between Vader and Palpatine, like after, like some basic stuff, like, hey, like this was kind of contingent on my wife surviving. So like, is there any way we could like take backsies or like, what's the deal?
No, I know. Yeah.
First of all, how are you doing, man?
I'm doing great. I listened to all of the first Thrawn book, and with the audiobooks, dude, it is so easy to get through those things.
Oh my gosh, that's what I'm saying. Like, this is a chore.
This is an absolute chore.
Reading actual books.
Reading actual books is
way more difficult to pull off. Like, it's easy to get distracted.
Oh yeah, I get sleepy. Like, I've always talked about that. One of my colleagues is a huge reader, and she's like the type of person that reads like 50 books a year, like literally a book a week almost. And she was talking trash about people who listen to audiobooks, saying that they don't actually read the book. It's like, I mean, I feel like I'm reading the book. Like, it still activates the same portion of your brain. There's dope sound effects. You can see what the author was trying to like portray by the inflections of the voice actor's voice. You know, I think by many, many miles, audiobooks far outweigh reading a book.
No, I totally agree. That would be like saying like, oh, the author didn't actually write the book because he used a keyboard instead of like
you're exactly
it.
Right.
Like, it makes like just because it's more of a chore doesn't mean that it's more rewarding.
Exactly.
Not that there's anything wrong with reading real books, but like you know what I like about an audiobook? I can do it while I'm doing the dishes or while I'm doing a workout or while I'm driving.
I've been doing it in the wood shop.
I want to do. Yeah,
because lately I have spent so many hours behind a chisel. And it's almost silent in the shop. So you just pop on, just listen to Thrawn be an absolute mastermind and just chisel some wood. It's sick, dude.
Luke's working on a new table for our studio, which is going to be sick. I'm excited.
I get up at like 5:30 every morning and just put some chisel work in. And yeah, it's looking incredible.
One of the things with audiobooks too is like they do much better job of like capturing the aura of scenes because they like, especially with the Star Wars audiobooks, like they put a good amount of production effort into them. And I've just recently restarted listening to Plagueis as a precursor for the James Luceno books because it's kind of like they all kind of flow for me, the Luceno storyline. And like I just got to the scene where Plagueis reveals himself to Palpatine, and like the way that the music shifts, like the the kind of like weight that it adds to the conversation. Like it's just and by the way, the guy that they chose to narrate that book is so perfect.
Yeah,
because he just has the most epic Plagueis voice ever.
He's got a good voice. Yeah, for
he
sure.
Nailed it. Whoever made that decision, good job by you.
And it's cool because like they'll be on a Star Destroyer, and then there's this subtle but noticeable like gray noise that they always play.
Oh,
it sounds
the
like
starship noise.
Yeah, and it just puts me at ease. It's just so nice. Or they have like the pipe organs blaring when Thrawn is doing his
when
monologues.
he's doing his narrations.
Yeah, it's so cool.
The Thrawn books are all timers. I will probably get into those after we get
those
these
books.
Luceno
Make
books.
me a better healthcare provider. I swear to you. No, dude,
this is a take.
Swear,
Let's hear it.
I swear. So like I had just listened to Thrawn do his thing on my way to work. You know, he was breaking down one of his schemes where he did like, you know,
in the first
everybody.
book, it's literally like Sherlock Holmes.
It's like Sherlock
solving
Holmes.
crimes. Yeah,
and it just gave me this sense of just tactfulness and mindfulness, and I just went into my day and just killed it.
He entered work walking with his hands folded behind his back, just like very stoic,
just
and
commanding my fleet. And I just kicked ass. I saved some guy's eyeball. That was cool.
You walk into the lobby, you're like, Commander Vanto.
Yeah.
Report.
Yeah. Miami's like, I don't know who that is, but okay, sure. Yeah, dude, it just makes me absolute surgical in the clinic. It's sick.
Gosh.
It makes me a better provider.
Dude, that's so funny.
Yeah.
Ryan
Gosling.
So Ryan Gosling. I almost said Matt Damon. Yeah, like I saw Matt Damon's on my mind because I saw the picture of him as Odysseus floating around. And dude, the picture of Matt Damon as Odysseus is not
I haven't seen it
for me.
I didn't see
I'll
it.
show you. It's so funny. But it's not working for me. I'm having some issues with it. But Ryan Gosling,
I'm slightly worried. Is that a bad take?
You're slightly worried about this is Matt Damon as Odysseus.
Yeah, no.
It's just kind of like
it's giving high school play vibes.
I feel like you need like for like a ancient Greek warrior, you just need somebody with a little more rough around the edges.
Yeah, they need to cut back like maybe an inch and a half off the red stripe on the top. Maybe.
Oh yeah,
that's a little long.
It is a little long.
Yeah.
I saw a podcast of some dude the other day like talking about how in Interstellar when they discover Matt Damon is the guy that's marooned on that planet, how you just immediately get disappointed
because it's Matt Damon.
Ryan Gosling. So the first interesting thing about this is it's an A-list star,
right?
Like a true A-list star, and like not just that, but Ryan Gosling in this era is like kind of separating himself. He's been in a couple of really big movies as of late that have taken a big chunk of the culture, you know, and like he just represents a type of like talent entering the Star Wars universe that doesn't show up very often. They've gotten like there's been legacy talent like Harrison Ford in the sequel trilogy is a superstar.
Correct.
But like he wasn't when he started in the Star Wars universe, and like I was reading an article and like Liam Neeson, apparently fresh off of Schindler's List, in The Phantom Menace was considered kind of like a big get, and like, and by the way, he carried that movie. Like,
yes,
carried that movie. But like, this is the thing though, like that's what happens when you get that type of talent. Like, there's a certain we literally bitched and moaned about the talent in The Acolyte, the acting.
True,
talent.
Yeah, we've got to check ourselves.
And
this is a good take.
And how like it was something that helped. Like, it's a combination of writing and acting talent that makes a scene like feel like Star Wars, right?
Right.
And there's the acting talent's such a big part of it. And so like on that note, it's exciting.
It's a good point.
But I immediately got a little nervous when I saw like Disney is immediately like taking the Ryan Gosling movie and moving it way up the timeline. It's now like the thing they're working on, even before anything with Mandalorian and Grogu.
They're just going to rush out some plot again that's going to be trash.
That's where I'm worried.
Okay.
But at the same time, like, if they invest in it properly and they nail it, it could be what turns... This could literally be a turning point for the entire Star Wars universe.
The other thing, too, is I feel like people like our wives who are pretty casual Star Wars fans might be far more interested in a Ryan Gosling movie.
Absolutely.
They're trying to get the chicks involved. Man.
Yeah, they're gonna get the chicks with Ryan Gosling for sure.
Yeah, the plot thing is a good point. The good acting thing is a good point. But when I see Liam Neeson as Qui-Gon, I see Qui-Gon. And I'm worried that, and even when I see Harrison Ford as Han, I see Han. But like I'm literally worried that when I see Ryan Gosling in any Star Wars movie, I'm just going to see Ryan Gosling. And I think that's where I might struggle. And who knows, like they might do a fabulous job. And who knows, like Star Wars is wild. Like Ryan Gosling could portray an alien for all we know, and you might not ever see his face, which would be
it's actually just a cameo.
Hilarious. That'd be hilarious.
Republic pilot number 3, Ryan Gosling.
How much did he get paid for this? 80 million. 80 million.
Yeah. Okay, let me just put you on the spot like this. If there was like a dream Star Wars character, it has to be in Legends, obviously, because if it wasn't in Legends, it wouldn't exist yet. Is there a Star Wars character? By the way, this movie is being reported to be outside the Skywalker timeline.
Oh, that's cool.
Is there a Star Wars character that you'd like to see Ryan Gosling play?
You know, in the Darth Bane books, Darth Zana, who's her little underling guy?
Oh, Set Hearth.
Set Hearth. I feel like he's got Set Hearth vibes.
That would be an interesting character. He's just too small of a character, though.
He is. Exactly.
He would be perfect as Set Hearth because he could play the party boy mixed in with like
kind of shitty,
also super powerful.
Right. And but like witty, kind of fun. So he's got Set Hearth vibes. But you're right. Set Hearth is not a big enough character.
You could do you could do a bunch of different stuff with Set Hearth too, where like you could move him to the future because he has Darth Undead, who's holocron and is basically immortal.
Oh
like,
yeah,
Set
that'd
Hearth
be
survives till after the death of the Empire. Like he did it. He got the holocron and he learned how to transmit his consciousness from body to body.
Can you think of anybody else that you'd see like Ryan Gosling being in the legend material?
I think there's an obvious one, and it's Revan.
I think that's a really good point.
And I'm not treading any new ground here. I've seen people suggest it, but like
that's a great point.
To me, like there was talk of them potentially doing something with the Knights of the Old Republic. I think like here's the thing: if you're gonna do Revan, or if you're gonna do Ryan Gosling, you need the potential for multiple movies, potentially. Like if you wanted to pitch that back to him. And you need a seismic role. Yeah. It has to be a seismic role, something big. Now, they might choose to do a version of that that's kind of like creative and new, where they invent a new character.
Sure.
But like Revan would be an interesting one, because what you could do is like Revan wakes up like on the ship at Terrace in the video game. So like he's on the ship with Carth Onasi and he disembarks into a Sith occupied planet called Terrace. And like you don't know who you are, you don't know what's going on. He's like he doesn't even know that he used to be a Sith. And it'd be an interesting way to kind of like introduce his character. But then he like gets affiliated with the Jedi Order, but then they find the truth about who he was. Yeah. And then there's the climax with him and Darth Malak. And like what would be really cool about it is there's an extension of the Revan storyline that goes beyond the actual Knights of the Old Republic game, which you read when we read the book about Revan.
Right.
He's one of the original guys who competes against Darth Vitiate. So like you could actually use him as a bridge into, like you could use him as the Knights of the Old Republic, build a ton of enthusiasm and energy around a Knights of the Old Republic movie, series, whatever it is. And then when Ryan's like, okay, I've done my 3 movies, I'm done, it could be the last one could be his confrontation with Darth Vitiate.
Yeah.
And their Emperor Vitiate.
Emperor, yeah.
And then essentially it could hand it off to the actual Knights of the or the Old Republic storyline, which is the story of Vitiate and like the Republic fighting against him and like all of the different characters that are in that video game. And so like I think there's some potential there that's the only character I can think of that carries enough of a monument, because he can't be Bane. He's not Bane.
No, he's not Bane. He's not big and bald.
Bane has to be like a legitimate like
Ryan Gosling hasn't worked that cortosis.
Type of
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like you
Dude, you're making so much sense right now that there's no way Disney will do this. Like, there's just no way. This is way too logical, Jay. There's no way it happens. No, but like Ryan Gosling, he's such a great actor. We sound like fanboys, don't we? But he is such a great actor.
I'm a huge fan of Ryan Gosling.
He's funny.
But
he's got depth.
Great.
He's not just slapstick, right? Like he does have some depth, and he can be serious. And that would be such a good fan grab on multiple accounts because Disney would be incorporating this like modern day heartthrob, right? Get a lot of people who might not typically be involved in Star Wars on board. But then the second you start to talk about REVAN in like around Star Wars fans, we're all hooked. And we're like, yes, put this on the big screen. We want to know. We want to make this canon and don't mess it up, please, right? But if they started making that way more canon than it already is, that'd be so sick.
Well, there's a couple of like iconic pieces of imagery from it too, like Revan's mask.
His mask,
is kind of like an all-timer kind of thing.
For sure.
There's different stuff you can do in terms of like Revan and Malik also fought the Mandalorian Wars, so you could do like a prequel where you go back and you show Revan and Malik.
Sure.
Literally, like you.
And
could
people
tell
recognize Mandalorians. You don't have to be a Star Wars buff to know you're looking at a Mandalorian.
Oh, exactly.
Yeah,
like,
it's very mainstream now.
There's so much in that storyline between like the calamity at Malachor.
Yeah.
Which is, by the way, now canon. Although I think it was still Malachor. In Rebels. I don't think they renamed.
No,
that
I think
planet.
they called it Malachor, right?
They just renamed.
Malachi?
They just renamed some of the other.
I know they did by
for,
like a couple letters.
No yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, I think they still called it Malachor.
Yeah, I think they did too. And so like, there's the calamity at Malachor. You can there's the Rakatan Empire that you can get into a little bit because that's the Rakatan Empire is they create the Starforge, which is this like massive shipbuilding facility that is imbued with the dark side of the Force, and that's why it produces ships at like just this crazy high rate. And it was made by the Rakatan, who were like thousands of years before the Sith and the Jedi. They were like the original spacefaring species that like dominated the entire galaxy, but they were dark side Force users. And like you can get into Vitiate, you can get into like so many different, like you could bring in Mandalore the Ultimate, which is like a super interesting character that you could bring to the forefront.
Very well ties into modern day Star Wars.
Oh yeah, dude. Like I think about in the Revan book where like Revan and I think it's not Karth. It was a different guy, but like Revan in his Mandalorian like friend like scale that giant ice tower.
Yeah,
and
that's iconic.
And it turns out there's like an ancient Sith tomb
temple
on the top. Like,
so cool.
There's so much cool shit they could do, and
it's kind of a new spin on the Jedi, a new old spin, right? So like Revan is married and actually ends up having a son, right? And that would feel really fresh to, again, non-Star Wars fans, right? They'd be like, oh, the Jedi don't get married. What are we talking about? And I think that would spark a lot of interest,
Oh,
too.
absolutely. Like, he marries Bastila. Like, and Bastila leads to one of my favorite characters from the CGI trailers that they did, but Satele Shan, which is Bastila's granddaughter, is the one who uses the saber staff and is like fighting all the Sith on Alderaan.
Dude, those are sick.
Yeah, like there's so much cool stuff they can do, and like it can even feed down the line where like if it becomes popular, it could be literally a thing that feeds into a potential Darth Bane storyline.
Oh my
down
gosh.
the
Could
road.
you imagine?
Disney has this like obsession with scale, and what would be great is like
finally for the scale to make sense.
Exactly. Yeah. Because the whole point about like the actual Star Wars universe that we watch is like the original 6 movies is like the Sith were operating in subterfuge, and the Clone Wars were like basically a shadow conflict that was being fought by clones and droids, which are basically all dispensable, or they can be lost. And then like the Galactic Civil War is kind of like bands of rebels with hit and run attacks, and it's like it's not like a full scale global conflict with like real pain, suffering, and loss. Although in the Clone Wars, tens of trillions of innocents died, but like you can have like a more global conflict where there's, what would be great on screen? 15 red lightsabers on screen at one time, fighting against a bunch of Jedi. You can do that kind of stuff after, like, you can tee up with Revan and Malik as like a 2 Sith duo, and then you can flow into the Old Republic and like actually show the full scale galactic conflict between Emperor Vitiate and the Republic. Like, you could do so much different stuff. I think that makes the most sense. I can't even, like, to be honest with you, man, other than like generating a new character from scratch, I can't conceptualize any other character that would make sense for him to play.
I would much rather than have them portray Revan than have a brand new character that we're just supposed to learn. You know, and I'm down for new characters, right?
Yeah.
Like The Stranger was sick. All-time top favorite character list that he makes, right? So, but yeah, I mean, I would like them to still give some fan fodder. Like, I hate to say that. Like, I sound like a typical Star Wars fan, but like they have the opportunity to really marry, like, being loyal to your Star Wars fans that have floated this concept of Star Wars for decades at this point, but then also still spin it into something new and generate new fandom, because they definitely need new fandom, dude. Like,
They do.
People don't really like love Star Wars like they used to. It used to be this like very like blanketed, like, oh yeah, everyone loves Star Wars type thing, and now I feel like it's less and less by the day.
Disney fucked it that bad.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
did.
It's kind of wild how many people are like, I don't really care about Star Wars.
This is a good opportunity for, like, to me, like, Ryan Gosling, it reminds me of Luka Doncic just getting traded to the Los Angeles Lakers. Like, I saw a meme on Twitter the other day, and it shows like a person walking, and it's like, and like they step on a rake, and the rake slaps them in the face, and it's like get LeBron, turn AD into Luka, win a championship or something like that. It's just like, that's literally what the Lakers did. Like, they were just ridiculously incompetent for years and years and years, and good shit just keeps happening to them because of just sheer luck. You know what I mean? And like, that's the thing, is like, you got gift wrapped this because Disney, frankly, didn't have the courage to do Revan. They didn't have the courage to go back and tell a new story.
Mm-hmm.
Ryan Gosling is the perfect solution to that problem.
Yeah.
Ryan Gosling is the type of talent. There are certain talents where it's like, if this person's in it, you're gonna watch it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like I watched a movie with I think it was Brad Pitt and George Clooney, where both guys are guys who clean up murder scenes so that the law can't find out. It's like what their profession is. And it was a really bad movie.
Oh,
like, it was an awful movie. But like,
I
watched
that.
it because it was Brad Pitt and he's a legend of our era, and
Clooney.
it was on like Netflix or something. So like, I didn't
They
have
have
to like
an
go
aura
to the
about
theater.
them.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, and and by the way, like, when you're watching the movie, it's not Brad Pitt and George Clooney's fault that the movie sucks. Like, it's like they're doing their job. It's just that whoever made the movie just completely fumbled the bag. So like, that's the way I look at it with Ryan Gosling, in the sense where there is like a certain amount of like literal millions and millions of people that will go see that movie strictly because it's Ryan Gosling.
Oh yeah.
So
our friends would all go, and we're the only Star Wars fans in all of our friends.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a great example. So like, the way I look at it, you can play, if he is your key to launch any new story you want. So like, if
Ryan,
if you ever wanted to do exactly. If you ever wanted to do Revan, he's the guy. You put him in as Revan, and you heavily invest in writing talent, directing talent, acting talent. You knock this thing out of the park. If your goal is to go way in the future, and it's like 100 years after Rey is dead, and you want to introduce a new character, but you're scared that telling a new story is going to be really difficult to land a Star Wars plane, whatever, then put Ryan Gosling
Don't
as
talk
the lead
about landing
role.
planes right now, Jason. Oh my gosh, because apparently no one can do that.
Dude, gosh, when I saw the video of the plane on its,
We're talking about the Delta.
Yeah, the Delta plane that flipped over in Toronto. When I saw the video of the plane on its side, I'm like, is this AI? Like,
dude, I
what
literally,
in the world?
because
Like,
the way it's filmed, it's like shaky cam. There's water being sprayed. It's windy and gusty. It literally looked fake.
Oh, dude,
it looked like it was CGI. I was like, is this out of a movie? And the guy's like, who's filming, or someone near him is like, oh my gosh,
Dude.
our plane is flipped, and he was freaking out. But yeah, I thought it was fake too.
Yeah, that was super interesting, because like, apparently in Canada they have like a different barrier for what they consider to be like wind speeds that are too much for landing.
Which actually kind of makes sense, because they probably deal with a lot worse weather.
Exactly.
On an average, like, no planes would fly at certain times of year if they didn't have a lower threshold.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But like, what it looked like to me there was a crash that happened years ago. It was a FedEx plane that crashed where like they didn't properly execute a flare, which is like a flare, like essentially as they're on their way down, right at the very end, they pitch up just right at the very end. And it's super slight. It's not like a huge dramatic flare. It's like this super slight flare, but it looked like from the video. Cause like, by the way, and this is my theory, there's a video of this crash. Have you seen it yet?
I've seen different
angles.
Yeah,
you saw the actual crash itself. The one from the cockpit.
Yeah.
So when I saw that
guy videotaping
that's what I thought. When I saw the dude,
he's
like
I
guarantee you,
I know
like,
Gary. He sucks. He's about to crash his plane.
Oh no, I literally think he was looking at the situation like it's windy as fuck.
Yeah.
This dude probably shouldn't be landing.
Either this is gonna be
time to get the phone.
Yeah. He's like, I'm about to see this dude just feather this down, and he's like, I'm about to, show everybody how good our pilots are,
dude. And what was interesting, if you watch it, it looks like he didn't flare properly because
he
basically just belly flopped on the ground. And look, I'm not going to criticize the pilot because I straight up don't know the intricacies of it. And it's very possible that he went to flare and there was like a last second gust that like hit the plane in a certain way. But like, dude, the landing gear like crashed. And one of the things I was reading about that's super fascinating is like, those planes are designed to shed their appendages. So like the wings will pop off and disengage.
Which
the
are full of fuel,
will pop
by
off.
the way.
Yeah, exactly. And the tail will pop off and disengage. And then it basically just becomes a big tube that just slides down the runway. And then what they did is like they just did an amazing job of like quickly getting the fire out and getting the people off. And honestly, I thought for what it was, I thought it was an amazing accomplishment that no one died.
Me too.
In the crash.
No, and it was a Boeing, correct?
It was it was an Embraer or no, it was a Bombardier. I can't remember what it was, but it was a small regional plane, not a Boeing.
Not a Boeing. So Boeing took a big win on this one for once. It's not a Boeing.
Boeing is not currently in the shit. Yeah.
Yeah, but actually, Boeing probably wishes that was their crash because apparently it wasn't really Boeing's fault or the plane's fault. It was just the crosswind, and then all of their safety features worked.
Yeah, and all their safety. It was a great moment
for safety in aviation
for Embraer or whatever it was. Yeah, and the one that crashed in the river in DC was an ERJ. I think it might have been the same manufacturer.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Seeing a flipped over airplane is shocking,
dude.
Because you see the fuselage of the airplane flipped, and you're like, oh wow, that's pretty wild, the crash. And then you think about the giant wings that exist on an airplane, and you're just like, where did those go?
Yeah.
And of course, like what you talked about, they break off. And what a great feature to have the fuel in the wings, which essentially fall off and scatter themselves away from where everyone else is.
Oh no, it's remarkable.
It's incredible because the footage that's from the cockpit, you see like this fireball engulf the entire scene, and you're like, this can't be the same crash because I saw an intact airplane with people breathing and talking and screaming. And then sure enough, it is because the fuel was all away from, where those people
and
are.
it shed it off. And and like essentially it just becomes like a big tube full of people that is just sliding down the snow, and
it's
like,
so
and
crazy.
it probably helped that there was so much snow because they probably like kicked up a bunch of snow that like helped put out some of the flame. Like, dude, is remarkable. And like, it's just like a crazy sequence. There was a lot of talk in recent years of like air traffic control being overwhelmed and like a bunch of different near misses where planes came within a few hundred feet of hitting each other. There was a famous one a few years back where like this dude, there's like at the San Francisco airport, there's two completely parallel runways, and then there's a taxiway that's parallel to the other runway, and there was a taxiway that had like 7 planes on it. And some idiot was like about to land on the taxiway and just take out all the planes. Pulled up at the last second and missed it by like less than 100 feet or something.
Which
like that.
100 feet in aeronautical terms is an instant.
Oh yeah,
it's
to give you an idea, when air traffic control is communicating with airplanes, they use the terminology flight level with like a number after it, and that signifies how many thousands of feet they want you flying at. So like if you're like circling the airport waiting for the runway to be available to be like, flight level 15, and you're supposed to just sit at 15,000 feet. And they do that because they'll put every plane on its own flight level.
Oh, I see.
So that they're always at least 1,000 feet apart. when they're navigating in the air. Like even in the lanes, like when you're flying in the actual lanes, they'll put everybody at least 1,000 feet apart, so that like for whatever reason, if anything were to happen, you're like at least that far apart, which is super fascinating. But like, yeah, it's just like it's crazy because like you go years and years and years with like this just not happening, and like by the way, like planes do slide off of the runway relatively frequent. Like it happens like like once a year, twice
like
a year.
1 in 10.
Yeah, but like in icy runways. But
Yeah.
like a flipping over and like that's a crash. That's
that
a
is
full blown
literally
plane crash.
insane.
Those people survived a plane crash.
It's incredible. It dawns on you how intense that could be, because we were just on a plane with Graham not too long ago, like our toddler, and he's not in a seat. We're holding the kid, right?
Yeah.
Like, can you imagine being flipped over in an airplane holding a child?
Oh
in
yeah,
your lap?
you hold it on to him for dear life. Like the seatbelt. By the way, wear your damn seatbelts when you're on the airplane, just in case.
just wear it.
You might vaporize, but like there's also a chance that like you'll just get flipped over in a tube and slid down the
Or
runway.
you see people with head injuries where they get like thrown into the ceiling and then hit into the ground.
Dude.
You know, like wear
the
your
turbulence
seatbelt.
injuries.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, like those are gnarly. Yeah.
Yeah, wear your seatbelt.
Let's get into Labyrinth of Evil a little bit.
Yeah. James Luceno's Labyrinth of Evil.
So
It's not an audiobook yet, which is why it's taken us 9 months to get halfway through the book.
It's such a mistake. The initial thing that stood out to me was like some of the dynamic they tried to lay out about like what I would consider to be. Yeah, this is spoilers. We're about a third of the way through Labyrinth of Evil. If you guys want to read along with us, we'll be checking in on it every week.
Every 3 months.
Yeah, and I'm in a good reading groove right now. Maybe by next week we'll be close to finishing it.
Sure.
But the first thing that stood out to me was like the groundwork they laid for what I'm like in my head referring to it as like pre-Empire.
Mm-hmm.
And what I mean by that is like you have to. There's like you don't go overnight from democratic republic to dictatorship or empire. There's like a set of processes, and they did a really nice job of laying out like emergency powers, extended the term. Okay, are you going to promise that you're going to step down? Like literally the senators, when they meet with him.
With Bail Organa.
The Bail Organa and Padme and all them, they like put him on the spot and make him promise he's going to step down from power.
Right.
There's like, oh, well, now we're in war.
Sure.
So like now we need to watch out for espionage. There's a clear, like they call them like, basically it's like this, there was a law that was passed that basically gave Palpatine and his military force, the clone troopers, carte blanche to surveil whatever they want, stop and frisk everybody on the roads that they want.
Yeah.
And so like this meeting between this group that is stepping in to meet with Palpatine, their whole purpose is like, hey, we have driven the separatists from the core. They are now all out on the outer rim.
Right.
Can we get rid of these restrictions? And Palpatine basically says like, no, like we're still at war. And by the way, like it's part of the genius of his plan that he tricks all of them thinking that they're safe. And then guess what? General Grievous invades Coruscant. My guess is that the book will end with the invasion of Coruscant as basically like Palpatine's counter to prove that he needs these security restrictions. And it all builds towards like, then when, did you even notice, dude, did you notice the parts about how he talked about how like people are starting to turn on the Jedi already? And how like there's public sentiment. It was in the speech.
I did actually.
Palpatine straight up says like, he's like, I'm not saying I feel this way. But like there are people that think that the Jedi are like the ones that are trying to take power and as part of this war. Like he's
little
laying,
seeds.
Everything is getting, the groundwork is getting laid.
Right.
And this is what I appreciate about these novels is they just take time to like build out these details. But I'm thoroughly enjoying like hearing some of these like details about like what happened right before the shit hit the fan.
No, in detail. So I have a few points, and it's kind of good to break the book up a little bit because you can really digest it. And I was looking back at notes, and there's actually a lot of notes of like really, really interesting points. Number one, James Luceno, he thanks George Lucas for George always being available for his questioning.
That's so cool.
Which is, it's literally so cool.
That's so cool, man.
Is something that, you and I have talked about is somewhat lacking, like a central mind creating Star Wars, and how that can create like really messy plots that don't really fit well together. So he opens the book by thanking George Lucas for always being like there for his questioning. The other thing that's really cool is it starts to break down Anakin's mindset regarding his position. And it really starts to show you a deeper level of his potential distrust for his position. And it talks about how even in the beginning when there's that really fun scene where Obi-Wan's fighting
drunk.
And he's like, he's like high on fungal spores.
Yeah.
But like even when Anakin's fighting at various times, he draws on anger. Yeah, which is really cool that you get to see him like drawing on anger. And then there's even a part which is so unnecessary but so beautiful that it's in the book. There's a part where Anakin is essentially daydreaming of what his life would be if he hadn't joined the Jedi.
Oh yeah,
and how
he said he'd be the greatest pod racer.
Exactly,
in the world.
Dude. He's daydreaming about how he'd be an insane pod racer.
I'll be more powerful than all the Jedi.
Yeah. All of those little bits are just gorgeous inside of a book, and it just makes it so much fun to read. And then the last point that I thought was really, really neat. Have you gotten to the point where General Grievous is talking about why he hates the Jedi?
That was so fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the war with the Huck.
The Huck, yeah.
But the Huck had more resources, so when the Republic stepped in, they just screwed over Grievous's species.
It was purely
Super
political.
fascinating.
Yeah. Yep. And then he learned to hate them, and then
but he also respected them.
Yeah,
it was cool.
Yeah, it was cool. And then like his body being rebuilt, and how he like had to find the drive to continue to live as just like this brain on a machine.
Dude, they give Grievous's backstory. They even start to lay the groundwork for like the Jedi starting to hide stuff from Palpatine.
Yeah, right.
There's like a clear rift forming between Palpatine and the Jedi, and the Jedi make it clear, like Obi-Wan and Yoda, they make it clear like they just don't trust anybody right now.
Yeah,
like they're looking around in all directions. They don't know where the Sith Lord is. Like there's this conversation, and this is classic Luceno, where it's like just Obi-Wan and Yoda sitting down, like trying to figure out what's going on, and they're like clearly the Sith are like directly involved with this war, but they can't figure out why. And the simple connection they can't draw, which I think is super fascinating. And if they could draw this connection, they'd be able to figure it all out. They don't know who Tyrannus is.
Oh, right.
If they knew Tyrannus was Dooku, then they would know that they're playing both sides of the war. But they know that there's this mysterious character named Tyrannus, which, by the way, is dropped in Attack of the Clones. They literally say, like, I was recruited by a man named Tyrannus on the moons of Bokta or whatever, when Jango Fett is talking about it. But this Tyrannus character is the missing link for them to tie all of this together. They're like trying to figure out, like, was Dooku working with the Sith when he was with the Jedi? They're like, no, there's no way, because he was still a Jedi.
Right.
Like,
they had way too good of expectations surrounding Dooku.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. And Jocasta Nu like discovers that he like actually like manipulated the records. Dude, I'm a third of the way through this book, and there's like a dozen Easter eggs that we've got. Like, highly recommend if you're a Star Wars fan that you read this one.
It is rich in content and lore. They even talk about how Dooku, as a younger Jedi, was messing around with Sith holocron.
Oh yeah,
dude.
Well, yeah,
what?
They literally were talking about how, like, how could he have been trained, or like they're trying to figure out too. They're like, did he seek out Sidious, or did Sidious seek out him? And like they're trying to piece all this together, and you can tell like they just know they're caught in a web of some sort, and they can't figure out what it is or why.
It's so good. It's so good. A great read so far. We just need an audiobook. It'd make it that much better.
They did a little bit of an explanation on the rule of two too, where like they basically infer the rule of two, which I think is fascinating. It's a little bit of a weak plot device, but it's a plot device they had to figure out, because it's just pretty clearly explained. Like, how could you think they're extinct, but like also be aware of the fact that the rule of two exists for this reason.
Yeah.
Yet you didn't know that they existed until 1,000 years later. And they kind of explain that in the Labyrinth
Right.
of Evil book. They basically just say like in years past, the Sith were taken down by infighting, so it would lead them to believe that there would only be a master and one apprentice. Like they kind of just infer the rule of two, which is kind of like an interesting kind of like concept. And I think that's probably one of the weaker plot points in all of Star Wars is like this like rule of two, like it's a secret, but somehow the Jedi know kind of thing. Like, and like, and by the way, that might get explained. That might have been explained in the High Republic trilogy if they had ever taken the time to, or not High Republic, the Acolyte.
Right. We talked about that. We thought that was going to be a huge plot point of it, and it just kind of fizzled out.
I did think it was interesting. They added on the Star Wars website on the databank, like on the actual official Star Wars website, they added like the picture of Plagueis from Acolyte and like added like a new bio about him. And it basically says like, even dating back to the High Republic, he was manipulating things to begin the process of taking down the Jedi Order, blah, blah, blah. Yeah.
We might get the fortune of tapping back into that.
Yeah, I hope so. We'll see. Here's the thing: what it might end up happening is they might literally end up doing something with Gosling around Revan that flows into Bane.
Yeah,
that flows into the High Republic era. Like they might have more potential to do that sort of thing.
Yeah, and not to beat a dead horse, but Star Wars absolutely depends on a strong villain.
Yep.
Like it is critical that your villain is badass and actually somewhat relatable, believe it or not. And yeah, they've got an opportunity there.
And if you don't like your villain in the second movie, you can just kill him and call him a clone and just bring back Palpatine. So there's always that.
I know. Snoke was sick too, man.
Snoke was sick. Yeah, just a giant hologram
with like a melted face.
But that's all we have for today. As always, we sincerely appreciate you guys for supporting us and supporting the show. We'll be back in about a week to check in on Labyrinth of Evil again. We've been waiting for the right time. We'll probably do it next week, but we're going to do just some talking about like which Star Wars movies we like the most and kind of ranking them. Just kind of killing some time while we wait for some more shows to come out. But again, we appreciate you guys kind of being patient with us through a busy stretch, but it's going to be a very busy year. A lot of stuff to get into, and we look forward to getting into it with you guys.
Yeah, thanks a lot.